Good evening, everyone. Today is Thursday, May 26, 2016, It's 7 o'clock. Town Hall, it's the Board of Selectmen meeting. First up on our agenda is a request to hold the 5K race at Shartner Farm on Saturday, October 8, 2016. Kristen Cato.
Yes.
Come on.
Thank you. Morning. I'll sit really close like this.
How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
Good. So we would like to pretty much do what we did last year for the 5K. So it'll be pretty much the same route, same weekend, Columbus Day weekend, Saturday morning, 10 a.m. We've already talked to Chief Nelson and Margie Diaz about the ambulance.
Okay.
I haven't talked to fire yet, but I will. But police were fine with the route the way it was, with closing the road for that amount of time again.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, we got a email
Chief.
from the chief indicating such.
Okay.
Good.
Good. And it'll benefit the town common.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
What was raised last?
Last race was $37,500 after expenses. And we've gotten a lot of people asking, like if we're doing it, and people that plan on not going away this year, so I think we could do better this year.
Good, excellent.
So,
Wonderful.
yeah, hopefully.
Super. No, it sounds good to me, so the chief approves it and close the road down and all that good stuff, so yeah. Sounds fine to me. Anybody else have any comments? Questions? Yes.
So on a situation like that, there's
Could you identify yourself?
excuse me, Brad Cody, Nashua Road.
Thank you.
On a situation like this, is the police department, I'm assuming they need extra folks to handle the situation, and those additional are paid by your organization?
If we need detail officers, yes. He's gonna put out like a request, and if there's extra detail officers needed, then we would have to pay for those detail officers. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, well, I think it's great. I'll take a motion to approve this.
So I'll make a motion to approve the 5K at Shartner Farm on Saturday, October 8, 2016. Second.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you doing that.
Have a good night.
Thank you. All right, next up is a discussion regarding the Camp Virginia site visit. We paid a visit to the campsite this morning with a representative of the Sudbury Valley Trust. And will she be here tonight?
She said she would be. She may be running a few minutes late.
Do you want to hold off on that and do a couple other things?
Would you like me to do the town administrator's report and see if he's able to make it?
Sure.
Okay. First up, the update on Minuteman. We had a building committee meeting last Monday night, and the main topic of discussion was Belmont and how we move on from Belmont being the only one of the 16 district towns to disapprove the building project. And the district, at this point, at least, is not going to pursue the Chapter 71, Section 16N option, which would be to have a district-wide ballot as opposed to a town-by-town ballot. Their strategy, rather, is to try to work with Belmont and try to clean up some of the misconceptions that were apparently at their town meeting. It was stated by multiple people that the superintendent was not allowed to speak at town meeting and was not allowed to clear up what the district believes were some misconceptions relative to the project. So there's going to be, I think, a coordinated effort to try to get some additional information out to the Belmont folks and request that another town meeting be held. Belmont wouldn't be under any compulsion to do that, so we'll see how that goes. Also, on June 20th, there is a meeting being held at in Arlington Town Hall, Monday morning, June 20th at 8 a.m., which obviously no one from this part of the country scheduled, to talk about, I think the phrase that we're using is how to get Belmont to yes. I actually will be away that day, so I can't attend it. And it's going to be a pretty Well, it may be a detailed meeting. I have been told that it is going to be one of several meetings. One of the people who helped coordinate the meeting, someone I've gotten to know quite well, a selectman in Needham, asked if, since I can't be there, could one of our selectmen be there? So I said that, I would bring that back to the board and see if there were any thoughts. I like to maintain a positive relationship with the selectmen, so I don't like to recommend that any of them go to an 8 o'clock meeting in Arlington.
It's June 20th?
June 20th, yes. So we would need one of you to go, and we wouldn't have a quorum there, otherwise it would need to be posted, and no other town apparently is sending a quorum. It's going to be a combination of town managers and town administrators. Town managers and board and selectmen. I think probably heavier on managers and not as heavy on selectmen, but I wanted to make the three of you aware of that. I had a brief discussion with that about, would stand as we were talking about upcoming meetings and agenda items and so forth. So it might be helpful to have someone there just to observe, to understand firsthand some of the concerns, but quite honestly, I'm not sure what is going to come out of a June 30th meeting relative to this, other than some towns saying why they feel their town supported the article and what they saw as positive out of it. If no one was able to attend, I could certainly type up an email that could be read into the meeting by the chair of the meeting, stating, our views as to why we feel that Bolton saw it as a positive project, just as the other 14 towns in the district did. Just so you know, apparently, one of the major issues for Belmont is the people who spoke at the meeting feel that the school is too large, that 628 is way too large, and despite the fact that the MSBA have said that they would not support funding a school of less than 600. The Belmont folks feel that the MSBA is wrong, and that the size of the school should be roughly about half, or about 330 students. So those are their feelings. Whether I agree with them or not, those are their feelings. So there's that, and there's also, they have a major school project going that they're looking to try to start through the MSBA for their high school. So I think some folks are looking at the project as competing projects. So I think that's in play as well. But there are a very vocal group that feel that the school is just way too large. So again, if no one can make the meeting, or if no one is interested in making the meeting, I will certainly type something up and ask that it be read at the meeting.
How long will the meeting be?
Typically, these types of meetings are about 90 minutes. I find, because we've had some similar type planning meetings in Weston last year, and they would start at 8 and run to 9:30.
Well, I would be able to go. It all depends on some business commitments, but otherwise I could go, but I don't know now, between now and then.
Well, it's almost a month away, so.
Well, I mean, when do we know the date that the state's either going to grant Minuteman an extension or not?
Well, that's the other part of my update. There's been a formal letter sent in to the state, to the MSBA, asking for a 180-day extension under their failed vote article. Under a failed vote article, the district has the opportunity to document what the vote was, explain their beliefs for why the vote failed, and coming up with a plan to resolve the issue and have that basis for an extension being granted. As we've said before, this is already the longest running MSBA project in the state. So whether or not the state is open to granting another extension is questionable. I suppose they would rather try to get this to its logical conclusion than to start another project right at the very beginning again, but that's just speculation. I believe with the 6-month plan that the district submitted, I believe they do hold out the possibility of a district-wide vote, but not until late fall. they would try to go the route of trying to educate Belmont and see if we can get them to have another town meeting, I think probably early fall. So that's where things stand right now.
I thought there was a deadline sometime in June.
There was a deadline of June 30th to have everything done. That's when the MSBA, the current MSBA extension ends.
Right, so I mean, so what's the discussion of having another meeting in the fall if June 30th is the date?
Well, the letter is requesting the MSBA to grant an additional extension to December 31st. Now, if the MSBA denies the extension, the project's dead.
Oh, right.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't understand where Belmont's coming from. I mean, you know, why they seem to have the wisdom that everybody else doesn't. The state's only gonna fund what they're gonna fund.
So what I can do, I can forward to the three of you an email that I received from Mr. Matthews from Needham that has his own personal summary, his belief as to where things stand. And he's got one link to the Belmont Town Meeting recording, which I believe he had the discussion on it. I haven't watched it. I think the discussion on it was in excess of 2 hours. And then there was another link to, I believe it was the FinCom meeting, where they were allowed to present. And I believe it was the only meeting they were allowed to present at. The Board of Selectmen did not invite them in to do that, nor did I believe their warrant committee. And after the presentation, the FinCom still voted in opposition to the project, but it was an 8-6 vote, so at least it was close, and the feeling is some people changed their vote after they heard the presentations. Excuse me, so.
I mean, is there any legal recourse here? I mean, it sounds like officials in Belmont deliberately denied the opportunity for the Minuteman management to present their case to the people of Belmont.
Well, I don't want to say deliberately, I mean, I may be subjective, but certainly they,
Oh, I'm saying that. You can say what you wish, I'm saying that.
I'll be a little more diplomatic, but I'll just say that for whatever reason, they weren't allowed to rebut some of the statements that were made at their town meeting. So, no, there is no recourse. I mean, it is what it is. Belmont, the only way Belmont could leave the district is if they now chose to pursue an option to leave the district, but they don't seem, from what I can see, particularly inclined to want to leave the district. They want to change things and have a slightly different project, I guess, but, so anyway.
Well, but the thing though is, if the state denies the extension, the project's dead. So, is there an option to go back to the table and wait another 2 or 3 years, or is the option that they have to rehab the existing building? I mean, do they have 2 or 3 years not to do anything with the existing building?
Well, I don't think the building is going to collapse in 2 or 3 years, but certainly it's in really bad shape. It's only going to get worse. And as was pointed out at our building committee meeting, with Belmont even taking the step they have, if you look at the acceleration in cost of materials and the delay that it causes the project, our owner's project manager, I'm sorry, did a quick estimate and said if we resolve this by the end of the year and the project can move forward with this delay, we're probably looking at an escalation of $3 to $6 million in cost.
Right.
So time is very expensive right now.
Yeah.
If Stan can't go, I'll go.
Okay, great, then I'll make sure I get the email out to you so you can try to check it out.
Okay.
And just one other thing before, I know you want to switch back, but the long-awaited drug kiosk arrived today.
Oh, good.
And we're going to put it online, ready for business Wednesday, June 1st. We'd like to try to publicize this as much as possible so that the press is being invited to come and take pictures so we can get it out in the papers. Chief Nelson and I will invite Pat Bensutler to attend. She's worked very hard on this as well. And if any of the selectmen are available to come over for a photo op, and then please do. The plan is 1 o'clock next Wednesday afternoon.
Okay. Sounds good. Anything else?
No,
Okay.
unless there's any questions from
That's June 2nd?
first.
June 1st.
Okay. All right, so we'll go back now to our previous discussion regarding the Camp Virginia site visit, which we did today. Come on down.
So, during our site visit, we brought up the issue of the land grant requirements of the open space and recreation being, at least in draft form. I spoke with the state today, and they said sections 6 through 9 of the open space and rec plan have to be in complete form by the time of the application on July 12th, I believe is the date. Sections 1 through 5 can be in draft form, but mostly complete as well. So just, you know, if minor changes need to be made after that, that's fine. So I guess at this point, I leave it to you all to decide if that's a possibility to complete a whole draft of the open space and rec plan by July 12th. Obviously, that's a really short timeline. If not, I think the last I spoke with the Girl Scouts, they said that as long as there was sort of forward movement, then they were willing to wait. I don't know if they really thought wait another year, but I could certainly ask them about that. So.
Yeah, I did speak with Jackie, one of our two resources from Stowe, who are helping us out right now, and she spoke to Kathy. And Kathy said that, in her opinion, the prospects are grim. To get her word, not mine.
Right.
To get things done, to get that done by then, because, I mean, draft form does mean it's nearly done. It doesn't mean we changed a few things and then we get more time to do all this work.
Right.
So it's, and one question that she had was, section 10 references public comments, but we need the comments from basically it's 5 through 9 we need the comments on, correct?
Right.
So what is the, you know, this is what made it grim actually. She said that when Stowe did theirs, the public comment period they had was 45 days.
Okay.
And I didn't know if that was a requirement. It was unclear to me if that's a requirement or just a practice that they used.
From what I saw, there isn't any requirement for how to receive the public comments. They do give a draft survey that you can use, but they don't require you to use a survey. They don't require any particular questions. They just want you to get the public input, whether in meetings or in a survey, to answer, you know, the general questions that are laid out in the open space.
So it could be a public hearing and not a survey?
I believe so.
All right, so the status of the current open space recreation plan, has it expired?
Yes, I believe it's expired.
Expired. But if we were to redo it, what significantly different things would we add into it at this stage, other than talking about the Camp Virginia site?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not familiar enough with the plan to be able to speak in detail. I mean, I would think our maps would need to be updated, but, you know, as I said earlier, Jeff Lawrence has done a tremendous amount of work in updating our trail maps, and I thought that would be helpful to this, but apparently the maps need to be town-wide maps, not just specific trail maps. So I don't know, and we've got GIS capabilities here, and Gary is fluent in it. So I don't know, I don't have the level of understanding yet to be able to say what exactly the type of maps are that we need and what the effort would take to get it done.
Okay.
But aside from maps, I can't imagine what other town-wide specific information.
Right, so it's more bringing it up to the standard code or the standards that they're expecting, as opposed to adding anything.
I think it probably can stay in the form that it's in now, but if anything's changed in terms of, usually have to list out Chapter 61 properties, things like that, so that's probably a changed list. The map might have a few properties that may have been protected or changed the use since, or maybe if any zoning's changed. Usually there's a zoning map, a wetlands map, but...
I mean, we've accepted some new properties for conservation, not a lot.
There might just be...
But we certainly have accepted some.
When's the date of the, what's the dated date of the expired plan? Like, when was it approved?
I don't know when it expired. They're 10-year plans, right?
2005.
Is it 2005?
I think it's 2005.
I mean,
They're 7-year plans.
no, 6 or 7, okay. I was thinking that they were 10, so, excuse me. So if the last one was, so it's about a year expired, I guess, then? Whoever said that?
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah, it would be good to know when it expired and also just have a hard copy or two to look at it. To see how, I don't know how detailed it is, how detailed the maps are. I know our mapping's gotten better.
It is.
A lot of information's on GIS, so.
God does, well, you know, I was wondering if Stowe had all their mapping on GIS, or if that could have been one of the things that took long for them if they didn't, but.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Some towns will hire like CMRPC or MAPC to do the work. Other towns just have the capacity or volunteers that do it. I mean, some open space and rec plans are really extensive and really large, and some are really simple, like Berlin has a very simple open space and rec plan, but it has everything it needs. I think there are like 4 maps. So,
You had mentioned at the site visit about MAPC and some kind of smaller grants to help us with this.
right, so the smaller grant, I think, so it's on a rolling basis. I would have to apply now, probably before June 10th, to get funding to help with an open space and rec plan. So that would be up to $8,000. And so usually they respond fairly quickly, they said, and say ask today, because it's on a rolling basis and they know people are needing the funds. But is that enough time for an MAPC to turn something out? I'm not sure.
But it's time that's killing us, it's not necessarily, it's the time.
We're really on the clock. I mean, we've got about a month, maybe not even a month.
Yeah.
So if we didn't make it by the end of June, July, is the cycle truly a year?
It's truly a year, yeah. So the land grant comes up again July 12th. And in the meantime, there's not really any other good grant that would cover this sort of work. Not through the state anyway.
Mr. Cook?
The open space and rec plan that you folks have been talking about is, so it's outdated, and you're saying it needs to be updated, and that's a ticket to entry for the grant, is that the deal?
Yes, the current open space plan is a prerequisite for the grant.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, but which piece of it like seems insurmountable of our plan? Like what's the real time crunch in terms of updates?
I don't know. I don't know how extensive. I only had a brief conversation with Jackie this afternoon. All I know is that what she kept on saying to me was when Stowe last did theirs, and their plan, the plan they had at the time to build off of was, in her words, in very good shape. And it still took someone who was familiar with what to do a year and a half to get it done. Now, that certainly is probably more extensive than what we need in order to get to where we need to be, but I don't know that it's a section that's the stumbling block. It's just, I think it's the totality of the work.
Right. And we only have 30 days to do it.
And who was the person who quarterbacked the last one that's expired?
Carol Gumbart would have been the one.
So, I mean, this, as a side issue, this just brings up, how important it is to stay current on these things. So, I know the town needs to work on a town-wide master plan. I know that's expired, I don't know by how many years. And so it'd just be good to get a handle on, are there any other plans that have expired that we need to be updating and, so that we're eligible for grants?
Yeah, the only other one that I can think of is the disaster mitigation plan, and we are working on that now. Yeah, it's unfortunate that we've had the turnover in the position that we've had, otherwise we wouldn't be in this position.
Was she working on that one?
She was starting to, yes, she was. I think so.
Money was allocated. I mean, there was, the conservation came before advisory, asking for money to have this updated. And we turned them down. So they came back, hold on. They came back with a more secure number, and we gave that to them. So my expectation is that money was then subsequently used and put forth. Who cares if the conservation chair is no longer here?
It's not the chair, it's the conservation agent.
It's the agent.
The person would actually, as Tom said, quarterback and do the work.
That's what the money was appropriated for, to hire an organization to do that.
They were just to hire a consultant to do that, but it never got that far due to the turnover in the position.
So is that money still,
The money's unspent as far as I know, yeah.
it might be good to talk to Carol. You know, she drafted the first one, asking her about what it would take to update it, you know, the way Ashley has said, a draft form for 1 through 5 and finished for 6 through 9.
Yeah, we're certainly going to do that.
And how close are we to filling that position, or?
We won't have that position filled until probably September. As we've got this temporary arrangement now that we're going to work off of through the summer, we're finding we have a dearth of qualified applicants right now. So the folks from Stowe we're very grateful that they're being generous enough to help us out.
So maybe that's the thing, go back to Carol. I'd like to see the expired plan and see, just have a look at it and see what exactly has to be cut, you know.
Sure, no, we can get that out Monday.
Yeah, I mean, I think talking to Carol and finding out if, you know, if she knows of a consultant, you know, if the money is there, if she knows of a consultant who can jump on this.
No, it's.
But the issue is not the money, it's the time.
Well, but to Johnson's point, you know, depending on how much it really needs to be updated to qualify us, it may be, you know, with enough money to get it prioritized with a consultant, we may be able to.
Possible.
We may be able to pursue that, so, we don't need a Cadillac version to qualify, we need a less version, but we'd still need a minimum.
Right. I know the town of Boylston uses time bond. I vaguely remember there being a time crunch on them needing an update to their open space rec plan a couple of years ago. I don't remember if they were able to do it, but it wouldn't hurt to reach out just to see, you know.
No, it can't hurt.
We need an open space rec plan update in a month.
Right, no, we
Do you
can-
think that's possible?
We can take the all hands on deck approach and see what we can do, all right?
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to my supervisor today about the issue, and I said, you know, I could go back to the Girl Scouts and see if they'd be willing to wait another year. Or SVT could step up and try to do this on our own. I think it would probably have to involve selling a lot or two or more, which is not ideal and not the #1 solution. But if that's what we had to do, we could do that as well. And we could still work on some sort of partnership in the management and use of the property. So,
Yes.
Hi, Donna Beninati from Main Street. I heard you reference a disaster recovery plan, or what?
Mitigation plan.
Disaster mitigation plan, is that, you said you needed resources for that?
No, we're actually working on that right now, so I think we're good with that. Is there some particular function in mind that you thought maybe you could be helpful with?
Not me personally, but I have been involved in that industry for many years. I have a lot of contacts if you needed resources.
I appreciate
I just wanted to
that.
offer that up.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Well, I guess the next step is take a look at the plan and see what possibly needs to be done. Al?
I have two things. One is, the expired plan is on the website, I'm pretty sure. You can just go to the town of Bolton website and dig, some,
Planning board.
I think probably on the planning boards, so you can look at it, anyone can look at it, and you could consider getting together an ad hoc committee that could, in parallel with these other efforts, to begin taking a look at the various parts of it and see, find out what Berlin did, and maybe check with one of these other places before you actually give up on the possibility of getting enough of it done. What's to be lost, really?
I don't think anyone's giving up on anything, we're just looking at options right now.
Yeah. Anyway, you can look at the original one, or the last one on the website.
So, I think it's a good idea to, for us to endorse, the idea of this project, so you can go back to the Girl Scouts and just tell them we're interested. I mean, we can vote on that, but, I think it's important to give you that. I do like the idea of an ad hoc committee as well. We don't have a lot of time to wait till the next Board of Selectmen meeting. So if there are, volunteers in the town who want to, be point people on this, I think that would be very helpful. So if you can kind of crowdsource the effort, that would be great.
And we'll be speaking with Carol, too.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear what she thinks.
And then I would like to mention one thing too, before I go, is the last time I came here about the appraisal, and I think there were some questions about how some of the plans were created and whether they would really be likely. So I think what I'm gonna do is shop around the appraisal a little bit before proposing anything. I think SVT might get an independent appraisal of the property, and I'm gonna try to set up some time with the planning board and the zoning board to just get their opinion on some of those plans, so that before any numbers are presented or proposed, we kind of have a better sense of the value. Because in looking at it again, there were some questions I had as well.
Okay.
Ashley, would it be helpful to you if, while you're here, if the Board of Selectmen tonight voted their support for the project, so you can officially communicate that to the Girl
Sure,
Scouts?
absolutely, yeah.
We're good. Mr. Cook.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to understand a little bit more about this. So, you guys walked the site. How many buildings are there on the site?
About a dozen, we counted that right there.
And how's the upkeep on those? Was the building inspector with you guys on the site visit today?
No.
Was Harold Brown with you guys?
No.
Do you guys have a sense of what annual maintenance costs are gonna be on these buildings?
We discussed, which ones might potentially be demolished and which ones might be saved. I think that's kind of...
Do you have the ability to demolish immediately without having any type of interference from other groups within town?
I think it was said none of the buildings are historic, so that wasn't an issue.
Could they potentially be described as historic in some capacity?
I would, no, I don't think so.
And how much grass is there? How much do we expect grass to be cut? Any annual maintenance?
There was a parking lot, just like at the town pond, and then there was kind of a clearing at the beach area.
There's a very small clearing. The vast majority of it is all woodland and may not require much of any maintenance. Of the buildings, there's one larger building that probably will come down. It's not in great shape. There's an office building, kind of, the camp office building. There are a number of outbuildings which house, bathrooms. 2 or 3 of those. There's a couple of buildings that have cooking facilities, which really basically is an enclosed area that has a couple of refrigerators and a countertop. There are a couple of open-air pavilion type of things, sort of a roof over whatnot. But, I mean, there's nothing of any great, in terms of structural stuff, there's not anything huge there.
So what is it you folks plan to do with it on an ongoing basis?
Well, I think none of that really has been determined as to really what the property would eventually be used for. I mean, some of the buildings might be usable as, a meeting place or something. We were talking about the Tom Denny Nature Camp taking over some of the other smaller buildings. I mean, some of them are half the size of this room.
Yeah.
It may not serve any real purpose anymore, and may come down. And I think one of the things we did talk about is we need to look at, what would be the potential ongoing, maintenance cost, if this property were to become part of, town property.
So with 2 selectmen's meetings, we're ready to make a decision and to move forward and vote on the desire to potentially purchase this. And one of the main objectives is so that the Tom Denny Nature Camp, which I believe is a private organization, can have access to a town piece of property.
No, we're not talking about purchase. The discussion is that there would be a grant, pursuing a grant for some, and let's, for purposes of discussion of the last time, the cost of the property, last time we talked about it was $800,000.
Yeah.
The grant would cover about half of that. There would be other fundraising efforts to achieve the other $400K, the other half.
Yes.
But the town would not be purchasing anything. We may have to encumber some ancillary expenses in terms of...
That's where I'm going with this.
Lawyer, whatnot, but there's no plan to have an article at any town meeting to purchase anything. So the town really wouldn't be out much of any cash. Then, obviously, once this parcel now became part of town property, what then would be the quote-unquote maintenance costs for maintaining such a parcel?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind, and I tuned into the first one, and I heard all that, and that sounds great. Be able to acquire this, 0 cost. I would really like a little more rigorous analysis on ongoing maintenance costs.
I think, Ashley, you talked about SVT being involved because you have more capabilities in terms of maintenance of the site. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, our thoughts when we first went on the property was that most of the structures would be removed. Obviously, the open-air pavilions and maybe one of the restrooms or 2 would remain because those are helpful to have on a property like this. But in terms of our management, we don't usually manage structures, so probably removing majority of the structures was in our thoughts. But management of the rest of the property is something we do, so maintaining trails, creating trails, ensuring that there's no vandalism, encroachment, inappropriate activity happening on the site. Those are the types of things that we would be able to do in terms of management and that we'd be looking to do.
Right, because it would sort of be a joint collaboration between SBT and Town of Bolton, which would most likely be Conservation Trust eventually at the end of the day.
Okay.
And I think you were going to vote on was sort of supporting it, but not necessarily saying, yes, we should purchase this.
Well, that will be a town-wide
Right.
vote, so this is just,
Is it a town-wide vote? I don't-
Yes, it would be, any acquisition of land, even if it was a 0 cost to the town, it's still acquiring land, and it would require a special town meeting vote. But I think, as was just stated, I think what you're looking for is a general endorsement of the concept, that the selectmen are supportive of the concept, and would like to encourage the Girl Scouts to be patient, if need be, because the intent is serious.
Right.
Well, then I'll entertain such a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to support its Sudbury Valley trustees and their efforts to negotiate with Camp Virginia, acquiring the land for some future use shared between the town, Sudbury Valley trustees, and other organizations.
Second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we got 30 days. We got 30 days.
See what we can do.
Thank you very much. Have a nice night now.
You too.
Thanks for coming back.
Thank you.
All right, next up on our agenda is discussion and possible vote on plans for prioritizing projects for Route 117.
Well, as you received earlier, you received the compilation of notes that Tom and I put together from the meeting that we had with Barry Lorian at DOT.
Do you need copies of that? Do you have it?
I have it.
Tom, do you have
And the basis for the, well, what we used for the basis of the meeting was referencing the report that the 117 committee put together. And we did a walkthrough of that and looked at all the suggestions, conclusions, recommendations that they had. So, I don't know, Tom, would you like to walk us through it, or how do you?
No, go ahead. I'll take it. Thanks, sorry.
So pardon me, I did a summary of what I had from my notes a few selectmen's meetings ago, but effectively, we did review all the recommendations from the 117 committee. DOT weighed in with input on each of them, and at the end, actually Tom asked a really good question, which was to Barry, which was if you had to create 3 priorities based on what you've seen, what would your recommended 3 priorities be? And that's at the bottom of the last page, where he said number 1, in his opinion, would be ADA compliant sidewalks. 2, a new traffic light at the intersection of Main Street and Wattaquatic. And 3, the re-engineering of the intersection of Route 110 and 117 and the installation of new traffic lights. Now, that particular priority we already are working on, although we don't have re-engineering of the intersection as part of the scope of the project. It's working with the current footprint and putting in new hardware for the lights. So that was the input that we received there. And Barry did stress, obviously, that all the sidewalks would need to be ADA compliant, and once we start working on the sidewalks, we're really, I'd say, in for a penny, in for a pound, and getting them all done. As far as the existing sidewalks go, and then the creation of new sidewalks might be part of the corridor plan, or the concept of a corridor plan that was discussed. And on the somewhat limited research that I've done, it would seem that in order to pursue grant money, we would be looking at a complete streets project and embracing the complete streets concept, which does qualify us for certain money. And in fact, the grant that we'll be applying for the lights at, or the grant we're planning on applying for right now for the lights at Still River would need to be complete street compliant. But I think also, what we need to pursue is putting together something under the community compact that Governor Baker has created, where communities commit to following certain best practices, depending if we're looking at financial practices, IT practices, or infrastructure. And certainly, in our case, it would be infrastructure. And one of the best practices that would fit under that community compact would be the Complete Streets program. So I think that's an avenue that we can pursue. And again, with some cursory research, one thing that we know we're going to need is someone to go off and put together a plan for us. And under the Complete Streets program, there is up to $50,000 in funding available to hire someone to go off and put together a prioritization list or a prioritized project plan. And that can be used to hire a qualified engineer to do it. It can also be channeled towards our regional planning agency, and would pay for resources through the regional planning agency. So at the 50,000 foot level, those are some of the options that we have. Also under the Complete Streets program, it's a 2-year program that covers FY16 and FY17. any work to be done for FY17 would need to be completed by the end of June, so you're looking at going forward with some sort of a, by the time the engineering is done, a shovel-ready project, for lack of a better term. Any engineering is at the town's expense, from what I can see so far. And I believe the top grant award, or the top award, I don't know if they're referring to it as a grant or not, is $400,000. Because I think over the 2 fiscal years, there are about $12 million budgeted for the program. So I guess the first step is creating the priorities. You know, what does the board feel that the priorities are? Or, well, I think prioritization needs to come from the board, and then if we can pursue funding to have, to hire a consultant, whether it's through the planning agency or whoever, to put together that prioritization list. It sounds to me like that's a key document to work from.
So there's 50,000, you're saying that the grant, up to 50,000 for engineering? It would be engineering or planning?
No, I think it's planning. I don't think, it would seem to me from what I read that, that the engineering is pretty much on the town. And that the 50, yes, that would be considered Tier 2 funding. Tier 2 is the Complete Streets Prioritization Plan Development Phase, where you can submit the CS Prioritization Plan template or request technical assistance up to $50,000 for the development of such a plan. And then once you've got that in place, then Tier 3 requires a brief application and list of the projects equaling a cost not to exceed $400,000 that you want funding for in that given year. Just from the Complete Streets FAQ that is online.
But based upon that, if it's 400 grand, that then it would potentially exclude some of the items that have been discussed, like the intersection at the light at Wattaquatic and Main, which would be far exceed 400K.
Correct. I mean, that's either we could look at it as funding a portion of the project, or because of the expense of a project like that, and I think, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when we were with Barry, he talked about, again, the concept of the corridor project, and the corridor being from Still River to somewhere, whether it's Wattaquatic or further down Main Street than Wattaquatic, but really to do new work of that magnitude, I think really he probably was thinking we're looking more at a tip project, I suspect, than funding like this. And a tip project would require the town to pay for the engineering.
So it says, to get on the tip list, we need to have 25% of the engineering performed.
Yes.
So we pay for that, and then we have to pay for the 75%, or could that be part of the grant?
Well, what I know for sure is the tip project wouldn't pay for the 75%. Whether we could, knit in some other funding from another source, I think would be to be determined. But the tip itself pays for the construction work and the management and so forth, but not the engineering. The example I always use is the Water Street project in Clinton, coming down Bolton Station and then down towards the ball fields and towards downtown Clinton. That work was started, the planning for it was started when I still worked for Clinton. And the DPW superintendent put a fair amount of Chapter 90 money into that towards engineering. So I think they needed to get about $400,000 worth of engineering done. And I think they used a lot of Chapter 90 money in that. I don't know if he was able to meld any other grants into that or not. But as you'll see now, if you go over that way, that project will be done this year, and when that project is done, I mean, they ground the road right down to the roadbed. All new sidewalks, all new ADA compliant sidewalks are going in on both sides of the street, and brand new granite curbing, so it'll be a very nice project when it's done.
Are they sinking the utility poles when they're done, or?
They've already done all the utility work, including the poles. there's more double poles on that stretch than you ever want to see.
Right.
And they're gonna, I think those poles, but for, and I followed up as recently as today on that because I'm concerned about nothing happening on Waterquark Hill. And the reason that there's nothing happening is the Verizon strike, because Verizon, in Bolton, it's the Verizon strike because Verizon owns the poles. And in Clinton, National Grid actually owns the poles. So I don't know what their plan is there, but as far as Bolton goes, I think the strike, I'm sure the strike has had an impact on that, and I'm trying to get to the bottom as to what the plan is, and I'm still working on that.
I don't think they're gonna be burying any utilities over there.
Oh, God, no, they won't, I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question, no. No, they're not burying any utilities, they're simply putting in some new poles where necessary, and removing, hopefully removing all the double poles along the stretch.
So some of this engineering work that you would be doing, that possibly could encompass some the planning for that could encompass some individual projects which would not involve TIP grants.
Correct.
And also possibly involve the larger potential corridor kind of thing, but we would still have to do the upfront engineering and planning work for sort of all of this.
That's my understanding, yes.
So I reached out to Metropolitan Area Planning Council, and I worked with them on the planning board for the overlay. So they provided a grant, and the grant paid for a consultant as well as mapping. And so they have technical assistant grants, and they're accepting those right now. It would just be a letter of interest, but they have funding that would help us with planning. They worked on a plan in Wellesley on Route 9, and they sent me a copy of that, too late to include today, but I can send it to you, Don. So that would be a way to get applying for that would be a way, and it's just a one-page letter. It's not kind of what we're looking at for the camp.
Just to sort of get the ball rolling.
Yeah, it's just, mentioning the overlay work that we've done with them, and how we would use the grant in terms of planning for the corridor. And so they would study the corridor, working with us, and they would draft plans. So I see it as kind of a consensus building tool. I mean, we have the report, but it's important to, start looking at visuals for these intersections, extending the pedestrian areas, things like that.
When I did the research on the Complete Streets program, there's one document that they have, it may actually even be this one, but one thing that they did I thought was very compelling. I think most people are a visual learner like I am. And this is it. There are some before and afters in here as to some projects that they've done, like in Arlington and Belmont and Cambridge. I think this might be the first one here. So if you're interested,
I agree. I don't think people can really support funding for the engineering unless they know what it's going to look like.
so when you can see the before, and then when you can see the after, it really is quite a visual. And there are a few examples of that in there.
So much safer, street markings.
A couple in Arlington, one in Belmont, one in Cambridge, I believe, but all of them, one picture really does tell 1,000 words, because you could just, somebody like me, you could describe it to me all day long, but if you show me a picture of it, I get it immediately.
So, the technical assistant grant, applications are being accepted right now. What is the process for the Complete Streets grant?
The process for the Complete Streets grant, I think, is effectively, first, we need to come up with our prioritization plan, and for that, we would apply for that's the up to $50,000 to hire a consultant, and they made it very clear that a resource from our regional planning agency would be acceptable to use. So, and I'm sure they're well versed in it, I'm sure they've done it, so.
So that would be MAPC?
It would be MAPC.
And I think as we have discussed in the past, we need to decide what potentially to lump in a potential tip grant, because as you have said, that's the one bite of the apple that we have. Because the example that Don mentioned in Clinton for Water Street, that took them basically 10 years to get that money. So you have to be careful what you decide you want to include in that, because if you are to get it, it's going to be a long time before you get it, and you're not going to have another bite at the apple. So, it's not like you can submit a tip grant and get the money to do Project A and then immediately turn around and submit something else to do Project B.
We are in the Boston region, and not surprisingly, Boston absorbs most of the money.
Didn't he say at the meeting that they do end up, so long as it's in the planning is in the proper form, they do end up with smaller chunks of money, that there was segmented parts of the project, that might come sooner than.
He did say that, because, what he said very nicely was, the Boston area deals with large chunks of money, and every once in a while, you got what they would consider to be a small chunk, $750,000, something like that. And if you had a project designed and ready to go, you could bump up the list, because a smaller type project could be served. So yes, that opportunity.
While you were in queue.
Yes, while you were in queue, that's right.
So, I really like the idea of looking at the whole corridor, so it's from Stowe to Lancaster. I think it's a mistake that Barry Lorian didn't include the high school, Forbush, Green Road, and the high school. That's, that would be on my priority list, and that's not just for the high school, it's for going to the dump. It's...
What he did say about that was that his suggestion was that we try to do fairly quickly some calming techniques, with the striping and the lining and so forth. And then, once we achieved that, then they would send someone out to do another traffic study to try to see if we can lower the speed limit, because now we've got a calmer flow of traffic, presumably. And then if we could, just the thought being that if they could lower the speed limit, say to 40 or 35, whatever, then we would know better how to design the intersection, redesign the intersection with Forbush Mill and Green. So it's sort of a sequential type of thing.
Right.
And that would be an immediate, low cost. He felt that if everything was properly remarked and there was increased enforcement, that they would come out. They were basically saying, we'll wait for the call.
That's right, that's what he said.
But I think we can work on the design of that for different speed limits to make it safer, and not kind of wait for that.
No, I think we do need to do that, because the way it works is we don't have the option of deciding what the speed limit is there. It's the state that makes the determination. And Barry was very specific to say that, to exactly your point, Don, that we need to put in some things in terms of traffic calming to get people to possibly go a little bit slower. Then they would do the traffic study to see what the average speed would be, to see if they could lower the speed limit. And then after that, then potentially there might be a redesign of that whole intersection, which would not be an insubstantial amount of money. It would be fairly substantial. But we don't have the latitude to say we want it to be 25 or 30, whatever. It's those steps. We have to do some things to calm the traffic. Then the state will come in to do the traffic study to see, if there is the possibility to lower it, and if there is, then what the state can do, in terms of their recommendations, in terms of potential redesign of the intersection. So it really has to go in that order. It just can't be that we decide that we want it to be 25 miles an hour.
No, but I other towns have had more success with Mass DOT, and I think Bolton has. And I think we can push them harder than we have. You look at the speed limits in other towns near their high schools, they're much lower than ours. I think this is a tri-town issue. If you talk to parents in Stowe, Lancaster, and Bolton who have high school students who are driving to school, that intersection and that area alarms them a lot. So I think it's a matter of pushing harder, and it's also a political matter of gathering, the parents together who are very concerned about the safety in this area.
And what I heard at that meeting was the town is really in control of the speed, because if you mark it properly, if you narrow the lane properly, if you enforce it properly, when they come out, you're gonna have a slower traffic flow.
That's right,
I mean, he
right. He said that, basically, you do that work, the traffic will be flowing slower, so when they go out and do their study, they'll have a better baseline.
they're gonna
to
do
work
an
from.
objective measure.
Right.
But that what you're measuring is gonna be driven by what the town does there, whether it's marking or having a cruiser there or a radar board or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said.
And then based upon what they see, then that determines what the speed limit can be. And I mean, it just sounded to me like that initial fix is, those resources we already have them.
Right, and it's relatively, quite low cost.
Yes, Mr. Cody?
The Barry and Lorian paperwork that you folks are passing out up there, does it include any costs? I mean, do you have a sense of what 100 yards worth of ADA compliant sidewalks cost?
No, the documents we have are the Route 117 committee, their recommendations, and there's a two-sided piece of paper that were notes from the meeting that Don and Tom had with Barry Lorian. I mean, there no costs were discussed. But, needless to say, it's gonna be expensive regardless.
And the grants, Don, that you were mentioning, best case scenario, 5-7 years before we may be able to potentially receive one?
Well, no, the 5 to 7 year or 8 year time frame is really the tip, and that's, technically, it's not a grant, it's federal funding. I mean, it's kind of semantics, really, they don't refer to it as a grant, just as federal funding for roadway improvements. The grants that I was talking about, we're talking about an award in FY17 as long as we can get the project done. The
And is
project
that-
will need to be completed by the end of FY17.
And is something like that also based upon getting that space needs thing updated from the previous
No.
conversation?
No.
Two different,
Not completely separate.
Yeah. No, I think we should need to look at the whole corridor and see where we can get money short-term to do some smaller things, and obviously, strategize on what we want to include and potentially tip funding for some of it, like Wattaquatic and Maine, which is definitely.
But I'm gonna need to work on that community compact
Right.
direction as well, because if you're part of the community if you're commit to a community compact, you're scored more highly when you submit your application for the complete streets with money too.
Mark, you were up first.
Yeah, Stan,
Could you identify yourself?
Mark Ayotte, Main Street, 95 Main Street. Just quickly, so the high school, now that the nice weather's out, I'm gonna reiterate what Jonathan said, because I drive back and forth an awful lot between my office and my house, which is right there, and it's like Frogger, high school students. They're all crossing right there at Forbush. And I don't know if you tell the high school no more crossing, they can't go to Classic, or what it is, but we have got to do something crosswalk-wise there. Because, I mean, I stop for them every time I see them, but I see plenty of people, I see plenty of I'm driving behind and I'm watching these high school kids, and I watch them dodge like a 45-mile-an-hour speeding car. And it's extreme, that's more dangerous than them in a car pulling out, to be honest, because it's only gonna take one kid to get hit. And there's gonna be some serious outcry. And they're crossing after school. I drive up, I usually don't get lunch till about 2:30 or 3. And they're like after school, back and forth all afternoon at that place. So if there's any way to get a crosswalk there and those flashers, I've sent off to people that the kids can press it to at least notify motorists, and this could be part of traffic calming, and they're not expensive. They have a little solar thing on them. You press the button, they go on and they flash each other. They're wireless. You just stick them in the ground and you go. I can send you a bunch of pictures on them. They're gonna be low cost, but it could be a really good safety measure, I think, there, or something we need to figure out there. Or tell the high school, stop having the students after school crossing to go to Classic to get food, bring lunch. They can't cross that. You guys have to control it. You gotta choose one way or the other, but it's very difficult.
Well, Tom and I did have a fairly detailed conversation with Barry about that. And there are 6 criteria that need to be met in order to be able to do what you're talking about. And we don't meet 2 of the 6. So Barry said on the spot, it's a non-starter to do that.
Okay?
Build a tunnel under 170.
What are the two that we don't need?
Yeah, what are the 2 that we don't need?
The one that I remember best is that in order to be able to create that school zone, you have to have at least one.
I'm not saying school zone, crosswalk. Different
But
than
you can't have a
school zone.
crosswalk in a 45-mile-an-hour zone.
Well, they have it, how do they have it down in, I just was at the high school in Littleton and they have it.
All I repeat is what we were
Yeah, I
told.
mean,
And
that,
I brought that up with him too, because I was up in Andover, and
Right.
Phillips Andover has 20 miles an hour too.
Well, this isn't 20 mile an hour there at that high school. I mean, they're flying by and,
No, I know, and he says that unless you have, it has to be somebody 8th grade or under in the school, then you don't get the school zone, and I know that's not what you're saying.
yeah. I'm not after the school zone, I'm after a safer way for these
No,
kids to be
and
crossing
I
that
actually
road.
brought up the place where the people were complaining for years and years and years, and then there was just a huge disaster, traffic fatality, and DOT was on the hook for that. I
Well,
mean,
that's Route 20.
PR, Route
Yeah.
20, right.
That's Route 20.
And I brought up that specific example, because it's
Well,
going to happen.
I would write the letter to Mass DOT and say, we think it's a serious problem. We have high school students, put them on the hook, because as I learned in the 2008 ice storm from my friends at Princeton Municipal Light Department, having a letter with a state agency is your get out of jail free card as a other municipal agency, where that gentleman went into a MEMA meeting where they were going to cite PMLD for not providing power and the right lines to the top of DCR, and he had about 7 certified letters to DCR telling them that they needed to replace the lines and do the proper work and do this and do that. And basically the governor at that point said, DCR, really? Are you serious? And let him off. Said, get out of here, you're all set. So I suggest that we put MassDOT on notice and say we have a real concern about these high school students not 20 miles an hour, it's just crossing. You know, that's different. And it's all, my daughter, who is 13, walks to Forbush to soccer and has to cross that stretch of road. So it's all part of mobility and everything, so we should strongly look at that intersection hard, so.
Bert Schnetzler, Meadow Road. I was also chairman of the 117 committee. If you read the report, you know, our top priority really was the high school area, and so I agree we have to do something about that. But I certainly agree that we have to look at this as a complete corridor problem, and that is what we look at as a committee. And I'd like to say something a bit more and a bit more general, but there was an article in the Globe maybe 3-4 weeks ago. It was called How Brookline Became Brookline. And Brookline is the town that has the highest median house price in the state. And what it said basically was they planned everything they did and they invested in the town. And every time we talk about money, somebody says, we don't have the money. or we can't get the money, or we don't, it's not available. And they said they planned it, and they paid for it, and they taxed accordingly. And when you think about it, it's an investment in the town, and if I have to pay $200 a year extra, $300 a year extra, and the improvements that the town does with that money raises my house, the value of my house by just 1% in 10 years, then I have more than made up what I have paid in taxes in order to get that. And so it's an investment in the town, and it's an investment in yourself. You don't even have to say, I care about the town. You can say, I don't care about the town, I'm going to be greedy and do it for myself. But if you do that investment, it's a great investment. And it doesn't take much, and it, like I said, 300 more a year. And if I get just 1%, that's the best investment in my portfolio.
Bert, I agree with you 100%, and that's exactly the philosophy behind the Community Preservation Act, of which this town voted down twice.
Yes.
Because it required an investment, and it required the town to have to raise taxes a little bit to get the matching money.
The one thing
from the
this
state.
town has always been good at is turning down free money. And we have to stop doing that.
Yep.
We can try to become Brookline, or we can become Brockton. Take your pick.
Yep. Yep, it takes a different bit of mentality, I agree with you 100%, Bert, and unfortunately, there were more people who decided that they didn't want their taxes raised for precisely the reasons that you were articulating.
Wow,
And that's why it never made it to the light of day. I know, Al, I mean,
Okay, all right.
I know that all this, but
never
it came up
turned out.
twice, it failed twice. So I know the reasons, and we've had this discussion before, but twice it came up, twice it didn't make it, so.
Postponed once and failed in the ballot, not in town meeting.
And well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. You gotta look at the end result.
Time's a charm, though.
You gotta look at the end result.
Next year.
The end result, so.
So I just want to get back. I'm sorry. I mean, what I'm saying is that it's, this 117 is what we're talking about now. But it's all these different issues that come up. And we have to learn to invest in the town. Thank you.
Well, we'll see if,
We'll see.
well, now we have to, because the state's walked away. The state has walked away, so pretty much most of this, unless we can get grants or whatnot, is gonna be on our dime.
Dave Lindsay, China, some Dave Lindsay.
I think the other thing which needs to be brought out is that after the state walked away from trying to participate in 117, the state has also walked away from the major redesign of the 117 and 495 interchange. They were 25% in the way of a major redesign. What the work they did was just work because of Don's persistence and trying to work very well for many years with Barry Loren and company to get the work that was done there without any major redesign to try to improve the traffic flow and making the a bit more safe to get off of 495 in both directions.
Global partners can do it.
But the major redesign, once the state walked away from us from 117, that they've moved on. That project is not going forward anymore, so it's unfortunate, but there are many more consequences to the actions that we take than we realized at the time.
So, Don, do you know what that column is? They just poured like a footing right next to the 495 overpass.
Next to the overpass?
Yeah, it looked like they were going to expand the bridge, so they poured a new footing this spring.
I honestly don't. I'll have to ask, I'll email Barry and ask him about
Because it
that.
seems like they are still doing some work, but I just want to get back to...
Lights, yeah, that's a lighting project.
Okay.
They're doing it all up and down, every interchange is getting LED lights. So,
What we are getting, just as a reminder, because I'm really proud of this one, is that we are I have the commitment that we will be getting the delayed left-hand turn on Sugar from the eastbound direction.
You said it was gonna happen in April.
Yeah.
I didn't say what year though, did I?
You're right.
And that I do have an email, so I'll be staying on top of that.
Well, anyway, I think we need to look at the planning from a corridor perspective. It's gonna take some time.
So what are the steps that you'd like to do?
Well, I just think in terms of, the planning process is important because it's going to provide visuals for each of the areas. So visuals for the sidewalks, for each of these intersections that have issues. And then those visuals are going to be, I think, what we would use to vote for the grants. Not for the grants, but vote for the engineering. I mean, that's the hard part. We can get, we can get grants for the planning, but it's getting the town to vote. And to do that, they're gonna need to see good plans.
Absolutely.
And then to move forward from there. So it's just whether, for me, it's just whether the complete streets, what are the binding restrictions with that grant as opposed to just going to MAPC? Like there was a time restriction that you had to do?
Yeah, we have to have the work done by the end of FY17. And
The design work or
the work,
the construction?
the construction, yes. And
Even if
also,
we don't get a grant?
for complete streets, because the funding only exists for 2 years right now. So what they're saying right now is that, and they have a timeline in here as well, but what they're saying is that you need to have whatever work you're doing completed by June 30th of 2018.
So that would be hard for us because we would be waiting for, the tip money to do some part of the construction, and we wouldn't know when that was going to happen. Is that right?
No, I'm not sure that we would be utilizing the complete streets funding on a tip project. I think
Okay.
a tip project would be a larger scope.
Okay.
I'm trying to find the FAQ that I just had here a minute ago because it did have,
I think those projects would be smaller in scope.
yes, I mean, I think if we're looking at, for instance, a sidewalk project would be a perfect example. If we're doing the upgrade to the sidewalks. I think that would probably fall into the category of, not to exceed $400,000. You can do an awful lot of sidewalks for $400,000. I think that might be the type of thing that we're looking at.
Yeah, so the question is between like MAPC grant, I don't think there are any like restrictions like that for design.
I think you're right.
But, I'm open to both ways, but, I want input from everybody here, about funding, designing and then funding sidewalks by 2017, or just starting the design process and for the whole corridor and not just focusing on sidewalks.
Would the MAPC money provide the funding for the planning? Is that what I heard
Yeah.
you say? So
So
why
they
wouldn't we go after
provided-
that right away and start using it for planning purposes to create kind of the process to get the town involved and you have to get the, concepts out there and get the ideas and start that planning. So I would think you'd want to sign up for that today, do that work. I mean, our committee did some work, but the whole town wasn't really involved. You need to bring the town into this a little more and get them more involved, and just like we did with the Common. I mean, the Common is a great example of what happens when you bring the whole town involved in looking at somehow what's important, what is good to them, getting surveys out to people, what they want to see in things, and get the information back. If you're doing it in a vacuum, it's no good.
But I think in this case, Mark, you have to remember that we can decide whatever it is we want to do in terms of priority. We don't necessarily have the latitude of how we want to do because many of these projects, the state will require you to design and plan and engineer it to their standards, and they pretty much have, in some cases, final say of how it gets done. So,
Just to be clear though, it's not the state's standards, it's the same standards that the state
Yeah.
has to adhere to.
Right.
That's slightly different, because that is under, in the FAQ, it says what design standards does a municipality need to adhere to?
Right.
And it lists all the standards
Exactly.
that need to be met.
exactly. So, I mean, ADA compliant sidewalks is the same standard, so
Yeah.
we can't have a different standard for sidewalks, because that's what we want. There's a standard for that. So, I mean, I think, in terms of perhaps what should be done first, second, and third is important, but I think it's not, well, we want to do it this way. Well, there are certain standards that we have to follow, so there may be some slight conflicts between what we may want to do and how we want to do it versus how it has to be done.
And the MAPC, would that fund a master plan? Or that
Yeah,
would
that would fund a master plan for the corridor.
Because that, Mr. Lorian, that's what he
So
kind of
they-
hammered that home several times about the need for the master
Yeah,
plan.
MAPC works with Mass DOT all the time, so they worked with them in Wellesley on Route 9, Phase 1, and now I think they're working on Phase 2, so that's part of the process.
I think what you're talking about may be synonymous with the prioritization plan. That may be the source of the funding. But you're right, and another thing to note is when we do create the prioritization plan, and obviously we have our list of 1 to S as to what our priorities are, we're not required to take it in the order that the priorities are established. If there's a good reason to go out of order, the state doesn't have an issue with that. So we're not committed to the exact order that the priorities are too, if there's a reason to vary from it.
I mean, my perception from following that meeting, which was pretty long, was a couple of hours, but they were their regulatory oversight is far less onerous than I thought going into the meeting. They have a few things that are deal breakers for them, but even narrowing the lanes on 117, there's flexibility there, and because it's considered an arterial roadway.
Yes. And I think you talked about the difference between 10 and 11 feet. Yeah. And they said that the guideline was 11, but it wasn't a requirement.
Right. More user-friendly than I thought, definitely.
Well, I'd like to go forward and, apply for the technical assistance grant with MAPC as the first part of this effort.
And is there a benefit to going for both? Or do we have to choose one?
Both being what?
What's that, community streets?
Oh, the complete streets. No, I think we should pursue every avenue that's out there. And
Right.
But the visual, I think, is gonna be key for selling the idea, for lack of a better
absolutely.
word.
I don't know if I missed this, would Complete Streets cover the 117, 110 light thing that we were going to pay for, that we now just only spent $27,000 to just get parts, but would it cover that type of?
It would.
It would, so why wouldn't, that's a shovel-ready project today.
Well, we are, the engineer that we're using to put the grant together, we'll put together a complete streets application for that.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's really the source of the funding that we're looking for there,
Yeah.
for that specific project.
I just don't think we know if people are ready in the next 3 years to spend $400,000 on sidewalks. So going for the complete streets on that with the time restriction is hard, I think a harder leap for people
Well,
maybe.
I was just thinking the light that we're
Oh,
going to
yeah,
pay $285,000 for, if we pay nothing for it because we get a grant.
He's doing,
Yeah.
Mr. Brown has got that.
Well, that's
Right.
what the grant application is for.
Right, the application process begins sometime in June, I believe. Yeah, that's exactly what
Right.
we're working on.
If you recall, the article for the 27.5 was there just as a stopgap so that we could just get the hardware in case the lights fail. We are also in parallel pursuing this grant to get the more complete, but if we don't get it, at least we have the hardware there.
And what our engineer has advised us is the hardware we're purchasing, if we are successful with the grant and we do the larger project on the intersection, the hardware that we purchase could be utilized for the end product there. So we're not spending $27,000 to chuck it in a year or two.
Yes.
Donovan and I on Main Street. I was wondering if we could leverage some of the traffic engineers from MIT. MIT offers free services in the summer for their graduate students that are traffic engineers in terms of creating plans. Again, I don't know if this will expedite or delay the process, but as an inexpensive first pass at some kind of a visual before, investing in it. And I don't know if that's will delay or expedite, but it's an option. It's a no or low cost option to get some very bright people in and do some planning for us.
Oh, I don't know, Don would have to find out whether that would be considered acceptable.
We could certainly look into it. I mean, if they would have to, whatever design they put together, they would have to reference the guidelines, the standards, I guess, we'd be held to. But if it's for visuals, renderings, to be able to get some clear visuals, I think that would be fine. I mean, anything more detailed than that would need to come from, well, it would need to have an engineer's stamp on it at the end of the day. But we're not talking about bid documents, we're talking about visuals to try to educate people on what the vision is.
So basically, the MAPC would be the first step towards creating a master plan, towards really taking the project, the big project on.
Yes, it would be. And I think that, I agree, I think that's something we should absolutely be pursuing.
Yeah, I mean, I would see, it's the whole thing, but you have visuals and, maybe people would want to vote on the whole thing, or they would want to vote on
But would give them
pieces
something to look at.
along the corridor individually.
Yeah, people really do need to be able to see what we're talking about.
Okay.
All right, so I will, is there a boilerplate for the letter of, for the statement of interest, or?
I'll send you, kind of the outline that they proposed, and, yeah.
Okay. And we can get that rolling.
Yeah, that's a rolling application process, and it just started, so as soon as we could get that out, that would be great.
Okay.
Okay. Sounds good. I think we're done with this particular topic now. Next, we'll go on to the Board of Selectmen business. First up is a request from the Bolton Access Television Corporation to release funds for the operations. Frank, come on down.
Good evening, I'm Frank Laskin, and I volunteer for the Bolton Access TV station, and I also happen to be the treasurer. And I'm here to request the release of funds from the Comcast franchise fee to go from the town of Bolton to Bolton Access to fund our quarterly operations.
What is the dollar amount this quarter, Frank?
The last check was $28,224.30.
Say that again, 228?
28,224.30.
And that's what you're asking for?
Yes. Congratulations on winning the race. Thank you. Big accomplishment.
So this is something that come to us
Every 3 months, yes. Because you guys might have a question about our operations, and so I'm here to answer anything that you have on that station.
Nope. I have no questions. We've been doing this for a while now.
Stands on the board of directors, so we keep you informed on that.
Who else is on the board?
We have a 10-member board now. So, Ken Troop's the president. Bob Johnson is kind of our director of technologies. We have 2 new board members, one who works at EMC, and we have a Kristen DeJohn is on board.
Mhm.
Susan Zuckerman. Joel, that superintendent of school.
Okay, so he's on because the school.
Yes.
is-
So we have a good cross-section of board members.
Yeah, I did have a question for you. Why is the Board of Health not being televised? Why are their meetings not being?
We talked to the chairman of the Board of Health, and we would videotape those meetings if he would allow it. So it's his decision.
So, Don, can you walk me through that? Like, how is
I
that?
can't actually.
How is that the board, the chairman of the board's decision?
Yeah, that's, actually, it's not the chairman of the board's decision, and that's actually not what the chairman has communicated to Bolton Access Cable. There was a desire expressed to start recording the meetings, and by law, you have to allow someone to record the meetings if they wish to, as long as people are informed that they're being recorded. But what the chairman asked was that many times there are sensitive issues that are being discussed that someone may prove to be embarrassed by. So his request was that the cable company not record the meetings. But if Bolton Access Cable decided that they wanted to start recording the meetings, then they have the right to do that, and they can't be prevented from doing that. So it was more of a handshake gentleman's agreement than anything else.
Yeah, so, I'd love to hear like 3 scenarios of when it's too embarrassing to be televised. I mean, on the planning board, we definitely had sticky, difficult issues come up, they were televised. I think Board of Selectmen has issues like that, Conservation Commission as well. So I think water quality is a big issue. We're all sharing the same water, and as we've seen in other places in America, water quality is so important to the value of our homes, the quality of our lives. So, I think in the next quarter, I'd like to see, you working with the Board of Health, with, a way to get those televised. I think we need more transparency, we need more people want to watch from home. I think it's an important service, an important issue.
Well, yeah, we're open to it. There are meeting minutes from those meetings, but to videotape it and put it on the air would be more convenient for the people.
What's an example of the sensitive, or?
I can't give you a specific one. I believe there was one where the conditions of a home were really, I don't know if squalor would be too strong a word or not, but there were health issues relative to the condition of a residence. And I think, I don't want to put words in the person's mouth because I have not been directly involved with this, but it's my understanding that was a type of situation.
So if a witness objects, or a person before the committee objects to being recorded, then the camera has to go off?
No, that's not true.
Oh.
No, the open meeting law says that someone is entitled to bring a recording device to a meeting,
device, yeah.
and whether it's a camera or whether it's an audio recorder, and the only requirement is that the participants be notified that they're being recorded. But no, you cannot, because you're a participant in a meeting.
You can't object and shut it
that's right.
down.
You cannot require that it be shut down.
So as the chairman that has done this sort of gentleman's agreement.
But if Bolton Access Cable decided effective, July 1st, that they were going to start recording any committee, not any one specific one, that's at their discretion, and they need to be allowed to do it according to.
And where does the Board of Health, do they meet in the same place?
Board of Health meets in the Houghton building.
No, it's not.
Yes.
Bolton Access TV does record more town meetings than really any local access TV station. Last year, we recorded, I think, 122 public meetings. So we're very busy just with the government meetings. It's our priority.
Well, actually, let's get back to the business at hand. Someone make a motion to approve the request for the 28/2/24/30 for Becca.
I'll do that. I'll make a motion to release $28,224.30 to Bolton Access Television.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
I will send an email to the
But
chairman.
yeah, I do want this to be worked on, for the next time you come in, to kind of come up with, a plan for getting them online.
Well, I think the plan is they just need to start.
Okay.
So I think it's just notify the Board of Health.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Jonathan, if you run again in 3 years, your yard signs can say, "Keep Jonathan."
Thank you.
I'm going to be the campaign manager.
That's an additional expense, though.
No charge. Have a good night.
That's it.
Upside down.
Just a bunch of dyslexic residents.
I know, as far as minutes, you had distributed some minutes to
Yes.
me. I had a question on one of them.
Yeah, and I-
Everything's, and I got
Yes.
your change today, so I'll be sending you minutes next day or so. So,
By June 9th, we'll have it
yeah,
all.
so, it was, I don't know what happened with
I don't
you.
either, because it wasn't in my document.
I mean, that was
Yeah.
weird, that was really weird, so, but anyway, we'll have minutes next time.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have an obsessive desire to know who went on your sidewalk to Camp Virginia this morning. Nan Schnitzler, Bolton Independent.
It was the 3 selectmen, Don, and the woman from Sunbury Valley.
Ashley.
Ashley from Sunbury Valley Trust.
And now,
That's all?
Oh, and Al Ferry, yes, Al Ferry.
Okay.
That was it. That's it. So we cooked hot dogs and we sang camp songs.
it was very pleasant.
Very pleasant. But we had apple cider, it was great. Great. All right, so I think we're done with Board of Selectmen.
No,
business.
actually, you still have the discussion regarding the lease.
Oh, we do, yes, we do. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So yes, we have a discussion regarding the renewal of the lease between the town of Bolton and the Conservation Trust for the space of the Houghton Building.
And the lease is renewed annually the end of June. We put this on the agenda for tonight to see if the board has any questions, concerns, or if there's anything that you would like to see changed before it's forwarded on to the Conservation Trust.
I don't at this stage. I think if anyone wants to make changes to it, we make changes to it the next time around, but since we're getting close to the deadline, then this has served us for some time. There may be some issue in terms of dollar amount, but,
So we have 3 tenants there?
Yes, we have Bolton Access Cable, we have the Conservation Trust, and we have the Friends of the Library.
And so what are those other 2 groups paying per year?
Batco is paying
$1,000 a year?
$1,000 a year, I'm sorry, $1,000 a month.
Okay.
And
are we still doing, I thought we...
No, wait,
we-
knock
we-
it down to 6.
We
no,
knocked
that's right, we did, that's,
We cut it down to
we did
600.
They
that.
did the renovations. I
Yeah,
should-
right,
Yeah,
absolutely right.
yeah.
600 a month.
And Friends of the Library is, I think, 500.
I think Friends of the Library is identical to Trust.
500 a year.
Yes.
So it was knocked down to 600 a month because they did,
Well, they actually had, okay, I have some background on this because I used to have Frank's job. I was treasurer and I also ran the station. When the initial lease was signed, it was, I believe, $1,000 a month, and it had an escalator clause going up to $1,000, $1,100, $1,200, $1,300.
Right.
We came back and renegotiated that because we made the Board of Selectmen aware that the Bolton Access TV, which is a private corporation, spent somewhere in the vicinity of $180,000 to $200,000 renovating the Houghton building for the town. And so we came to an agreement, I believe it's $600 a month right now.
Yes, that's correct.
But that's the reason, that was the reasoning behind it.
Anybody have any questions, concerns, comments on the renewal of the lease? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Well, well, yes, I mean, you should, I guess, have on the record that you have no issues, but
Right.
really, that's all that the discussion was for tonight.
Right.
We'll forward it on to the trust as is for their
Right.
signature, and then it'll come back to you for your signature and approval.
Right. But the approval of the document.
The approval of the document.
And what's the price for them per month?
It's $500 a year.
So it's 500 a year, and the Friends of the Library are 500 a year too?
Yes.
And those are both 501c3s?
Yes.
And what kind of revenue and assets do they have, do you know, off the top of your head?
I don't.
In Baca, who did $200,000 worth of work, is being charged $600 a month?
That's
Well,
correct.
they also have a much larger portion of the
Yeah.
building, plus the fact, I believe that we base that 600 a month on utility bills at the time. They run through a hell of a lot of electricity. Whereas the Conservation Trust and the Friends of the Library turn on the lights about once
That's right.
every 3 or 4
It's a huge
years.
electricity draw. We did try to
Yeah,
do our best estimate to index it to what we believe the utility costs are.
right.
So do we have figures for the cost of the cost for that building alone, for the Houghton building?
Well, we have,
With DPW and...
DPW, I know, collected, when we went through this stuff a few years ago, DPW collected the utility bills and the maintenance bills for us, which is how we ended up at the 600 a
right,
month.
and we were trying to net,
I believe we had an energy audit, I believe the town did an energy
Yeah,
audit
we
as
did.
part of the energy committee.
we did.
Work.
But the approach was to do a net zero.
Right, yeah, it was basically net zero.
But does each building like have it where you're looking at landscape, plowing, maintenance, utilities?
Well,
Each building that the town owns?
Each building has its own utility bill. As far as maintenance goes, Harold has the one maintenance budget, one line item in his budget for maintenance for all of the buildings. And, I mean, plowing is just the cost of the DPW labor, whatever that might be.
And does that have an oil tank there, or how does it heat?
It does have an oil tank, yes.
So that's part of your advisories, big buy there?
Yeah, I'm still just trying to get an understanding of, I'm assuming Mr. Patterson probably charges more than $500 per year. I'm just trying to get a sense of the market rate and why these two organizations are being charged $500 per year.
15 a square foot, I'd say is. So whatever they have times 15 divided by 12 would probably be the 15 bucks locally.
I believe part of it is the town has decided that they want to support their nonprofits.
How did that go up $200,000 to?
Because that building was falling
PEG
apart.
funds.
No, the
Oh, how did they
franchise
come
fee
up with
funds
this?
Right.
Yeah, they,
go to them.
yeah, we get, or they got various funds for equipment. I mean, look on your cable bill. You'll see franchise fees, you'll see various things. And a lot of those are fund backup.
Right.
When they established the station, they were given a fairly good chunk from Comcast at the very beginning. Now, this predates me.
And most of those funds hadn't been spent.
And most of those funds
Right.
hadn't been spent because they hadn't done anything.
Right.
When they decided to move into the Houghton building, they agreed to renovate the entire building. If they hadn't renovated the building, it'd probably be $715.
Yeah, an example that I can give you from another town, Jonathan, is town of Wareham. Used their franchise fees just recently to replace their entire network between all their buildings. it's a communications thing, and Comcast funded all of that, so none of it comes from taxpayer money.
Yeah.
Well, it comes from you, but it's your franchise fee, and you don't have to have cable.
Yeah,
You know?
none of this is, none of the Bolton Access money is taxpayer money.
Yeah.
I mean, it is whenever you know, keep buying cable TV, keep adding those premium channels, we get a little bit, or they get a little bit of, whenever you buy something on the Home Shopping Network, they get a little piece of that also, so, we'll keep it up, guys.
Or go over the
Yeah.
air if you don't want to pay for it.
Anyway, do I have a motion to approve the document?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the document.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Gentlemen, have any other business you want to bring up? If not, then I guess next on the agenda is we will move into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for the fire union, as the chair finds that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the board's bargaining position, and the board will not reconvene to open session. Do I have a motion to move into executive session?
I'd like to make a motion to move into executive session.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Frame,
Yes.
Wasaki.
Yes.
Keith.
Yes.
Thank you.